What's going on, everyone? This is the My Aggie Nation Podcast. I'm joined by a familiar face over here. It's one President Zachary Taylor.
I don't know if it's that familiar. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while, Zach,
put my
buddy.
mic up here. I'm not used to having to hold it.
I know. What's going on, buddy?
Not much, man.
Well,
just living the life.
This is Zach's last day at Bryan Broadcasting in the sports media world. So, of course, as one of the founding fathers of this podcast, we had to do another segment.
Oh, that's right.
with
I
you.
forgot. Yeah, just call me the Godfather, founding father.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, no, we had to do a little reunion tour, short-lived reunion tour. But yeah, I'm going to be getting out of media. Been in it for 11 years now, which is a long time. Hard to believe it's been over a decade. Getting to cover Texas A&M, my alma mater. Yeah, just kind of one of those situations where it's time for a change, personally and professionally. And so I'm sticking around town, though, which is good, so we can still hang out outside of work.
Thanks, buddy. We probably actually have more time to.
We probably
hang
will,
out
because our
outside of work.
schedules certainly don't really sync up much. We kind of are two ships passing the night these days, but been doing morning radio for last 5.5 years, and finally decide that I want to wake up when normal people wake up.
Well, I want to delve into that a little bit more. So before we end this segment, we're going to talk about your last 10 years here, some favorite moments and stuff like that. But for the sake of the podcast, we got to break down a little bit of what's going on right now.
Okay,
give the
that's
people
fine.
what they want. It's been a while since we've talked to you, so let's just start off with a bang. Let's shoot from the hip. Paterno.
Let's not get started there.
Yeah.
Holy
Paterno.
cow.
What do you think?
If they can avoid some real disarray in the coach's room and the coach's office, I think it can work. I don't think you're going to find anybody who's going to question whether or not Bobby Petrino is a good offensive mind. Can he work with Jimbo Fisher? Can those two egos work together, not just in the coach's room, but on the sideline as well? At first, given Bobby Petrino's background and everything that has transpired, and I think what even more so from Arkansas is what happened in Atlanta when he was the head coach of the Falcons and seemingly skipping out in the middle of the night to leave. I think that's more of a glare on his reputation than possibly what happened in Arkansas, which obviously personal issues. I think what happened as far as between him and another woman outside of his marriage, that happens, unfortunately, quite a bit in the coaching profession. But, it's what transpired about lying to the administration and things like that. But I really think him kind of skipping out on Atlanta is what the glaring thing is on his resume. That was a long time ago, though. We live in a land of multiple opportunities, especially if you're a talented offensive mind like Bobby Petrino is. I will say that his offenses at Central Missouri were not, at least in this last year, were not splendid. I get that you're working with a little bit less talent, especially at the FCS level. I think it had been however long since they had last, or Missouri State. I said Central Missouri. Missouri State, I think it had been forever since they had actually been back to the playoff there in the FCS. So all of that to say, the more I thought about the hire, the more it kind of grew on me. A lot of people wanted the young gun, like Garrett Riley. They wanted a young offensive mind that was really going to energize this group. But I think that would be one of the hardest type offensive coordinators to work with Jimbo Fisher. With Jimbo, I think he sees Bobby Petrino more as a peer than he would a young offensive coordinator in his 30s like Garrett Riley who would be coming in. So I think Petrino is a guy who very easily, and just from everything that I understand about his personality, he's been around the block, he knows a thing or two. I think he would be okay with telling Jimbo, this is my offense, go away. And Jimbo would be much more inclined to listen to him than he would a 30-something-year-old OC who, one, would either give in and say, Jimbo, okay, I'll do what you want me to do, or B, would butt heads with Jimbo, and Fisher's not going to take that from a younger guy.
I've said this multiple times on this podcast and other places that this is going to go amazingly or it's going to be a dumpster fire, and I don't really see any in between with it. Yes, he's going to have some better talent here. It's not going to have a whole lot of depth, especially at running back and a little bit at wide receiver. I know Anais Smith coming back was a big hit, but I don't see this going any way except for really, really good or bad. Because I think part of that too is probably that bad is a much bigger bucket than good. Because
more things can go wrong than right.
And even, maybe a winning season isn't necessarily going to be good. I know it was 5-7 last year. They need to turn around. They need to get back into bowl contention, all that. But I think with the way things have gone for Jimbo Fisher, they got to be back in the 9-10 win region quickly, or things could go bad for him. So, I don't know. I'm a little pessimistic on this. I do think he's a good offensive mind. I don't know. Are you going to turn the offensive line around quickly from what it looked like last year?
And you have the same offensive line coach.
Right. Like, I don't know. I think that's what gives you hope and what gives you consternation as A&M heads into this football season?
Well, what gives me hope is the fact that you do have an experienced offensive coordinator, somebody that has achieved quite a bit of success at this level. And I think that Connor Wigman will without a doubt benefit from having Bobby Petrino there, because Jimbo Fisher, even though the offense has kind of been his baby, and especially the quarterback position, I think allowing him to keep an eye on everything else, be more of an executive type head coach, and Bobby Petrino really zeroing in on the offense, I think that gives a lot of reason for optimism. You were able to keep a lot of talent on that side of the ball. You saw Moose Muhammad really come into his own, I think, this year. Evan Stewart, of course, showed plenty of signs, what people expected from him, especially later on in the year. Connor Wigman really showed those signs. The running back position and offensive line, the offensive line is going to be one of the more experienced units on the team, but can they play better than they did last year? Because I think in some ways they actually regressed last season, some of those guys. But can they pick things back up? So the offensive side of the ball, I think there's a lot of promise there. Strangely enough, it's going to be the defensive side that I'm kind of some question marks about. And I know that people look at the statistics and say, well, A&M had the number one secondary in the nation last year. It's because nobody had to throw the ball against them, because they could run all day on them.
Right.
So how are you going to be able to stop the run? You have now lost your linebackers coach in Tyler Stantucci. You've got to find somebody to fill that role. And A&M lost a lot of big pieces on the defense, if anything, from a depth standpoint, and they didn't get a lot back. I mean, you look at what happened in the transfer portal, A&M, and it depends on which metric you're using, right? Are you using players that strictly were with A&M? Are you using ones that were on the roster? Are you using ones that were on scholarship? But A&M lost 20-plus players. They only got 3 in the portal. They got 3. So the math ain't adding up there. Mm-hmm. And you're already going to have a small recruiting class this year. So depth everywhere is going to be an issue. But when you've got a defense that's going up against some real good SEC talent, how are you going to make those stops? And you've got to have linebackers that are going to fit their gaps, because that was the biggest problem for A&M last year, is that DJ Durkin's offense or his defense can stop the run if the linebackers play their gaps correctly. But they didn't. Mm-hmm. So if you're playing a 3-2, a 3-2-6 or whatever they happen to be playing, you gotta figure out something there. You got to be able to stop the bleeding on that. So the defensive side's really where I've got the question mark. I think the offensive side is going to be much, much better this year.
Yeah, I agree. TCU making the national championship is a perfect case in point of a 3-man front can play pretty good defense up until that national championship
up until the final game.
But the way that they stopped Michigan was they were going to ground and pound and run the ball. It was all about the Fitz having that 3-man front, and that is a really huge question mark.
The one thing that was maddening to me, and it still kind of is that you bring in DJ Durkin with this scheme, with this 3-man front. When you look at what A&M as far as recruiting has done over the ever since Jimbo Fisher got here, it's been imperative in the trenches, and the best units that they have recruited have been at the defensive line.
Well, it's been like that since Sumlin's been here too, really.
Well, but my argument is, if that is where you have the most talent, why would you not do everything you can to get that talent on the field? Why would you play 3 defensive linemen instead of 4? I understand that doesn't necessarily work with all the schemes, but time and time again, we saw A&M getting gashed on the ground, particularly with the quarterback, when a spy was not staying on him. and just running over the defense.
And I will say, to put a little bit of an asterisk on that, a lot of times when they did have 3 down linemen, it was someone like a Nike White who was stood up as kind of an outside linebacker.
Kind of a joker.
Kind of a joker type situation that, they might lean a little bit more on that. But you're not wrong. There's some really good inside defensive line talent that didn't see a lot of time on the field and potentially might not moving forward. That's a good point. Let's pivot because we are here currently in Reed Arena. Talk a little A&M hoops.
Yeah, why not?
Let's fire from the hip here. Is this a tournament team? They just made a huge win at Auburn. They lost at Arkansas.
Yeah.
A little bit up and down right now after a hot start. Where do you think this team is?
If they continue on their path that they have in the SEC, despite the bad losses in non-conference, I don't know how you can leave them out. I mean, they're currently tied for second in the conference at 7-2. They have these big wins at Auburn, which is not an easy place to win at all. They got the top 25 ranked team win over Missouri. Now they're going to have to make up some ground. They're going to have some really good teams coming here, and they're going to be going. They've got Bama at the very end of the regular season, and it's hard to believe because I thought for sure they were toast in the non-conference. They go to Myrtle Beach and completely lay an egg. When they lose to Wofford at home, I think everybody had them written off at that point. At this juncture, I think they're still on the outside looking in. I know people hate to hear that, but you have to factor in the entire year in the non-conference was abysmal. Mm-hmm. And we can get into all the stats, the Joe Lunardi deal, whatever. If they continue on this path, though, if they play the second half of SEC the way they played the first, and they have a decent showing in the SEC tournament, I think that they are an NCAA team. And I will say this, Buzz Williams needs them to be an NCAA team. Mm-hmm. If they don't make the dance this year, this is year 4, correct?
Yes.
COVID always throws me off because I almost feel like that wasn't an actual year. Year 4, I really don't know. I don't know if there's a lot of reason that you can give to retain.
No,
Buzz.
year 5.
Year 5.
This is year 5.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
Or in A&M's case, they haven't made the NCAA tournament, so it hadn't been all that fun. But you can say, wow, the team played great at the end of the year, but too little too late. Mm-hmm. You got to play well the entire season. And I understand that the big names are going to get the benefit of the doubt. You're going to get the Kentuckys in there. You're going to get teams from the old Big East that are going to somehow make it in despite a marginal schedule and marginal win-loss record. But, yeah, if you're Buzz Williams, you need to make the tournament this year.
When you look at games like this one in Georgia coming up, I believe it's a quad 2 game against the Bulldogs. You have to win those games because the only losses you might have margin in are quad 1s, the top 50, top 35, depending on where the venue is. You gotta get those wins, and it starts with Georgia this week. But when you look at just accumulating wins, period, Buzz has that plus-minus system of if it's a road win, you get a +1. If it's a home loss, you get a -1, and everything else in between is a 0, and they need to be about at +3, +4. You got to argue that if they want to finish around +3, +4 in that system, they're probably going to have to get to +5, +6 before they hit that last 2 weeks of the season where they play both Alabama and Tennessee, because I don't think that those are wins against this A&M team with how well those two teams have been playing this season.
Tennessee especially, yeah.
You really got to rack up the wins, and it starts this weekend, this Saturday against Georgia. We talked to him today. It also starts at the free throw line and making layups, because that's been the bread and butter of A&M's offense through this stretch through conference play, and they were the lowest mark at the rim field goal percentage and at free throw percentage this season was last week against Arkansas, this week against Arkansas. And they have to have, it's 25% of A&M's scoring this season has been from the free throw line. If they're not hitting free throws, they're not winning games.
Yeah, and we've discussed it a little bit in the press conference that we just had with Buzz Williams. Olin Buchanan was asking him about it. Did he think that the logistical nightmare that they had getting to Fayetteville might have played a little bit of a role, because the guys came in, they didn't have shoot around, suddenly they're having to make free throws was in a pretty testy environment. I know that Buzz had brought it up as well about as far as basketballs. They've been practicing with Nike basketballs because Arkansas is a Nike school versus Adidas, which A&M is. And A&M is not making excuses whatsoever. Buzz Williams did not make any excuses about the travel. At the end of the day, you still have to be able to go out and perform. As you mentioned, the free throws were an issue. Buzz had brought up in his post game after the loss to Arkansas that those second chances at the rim, offensive rebounds, he said were a real glaring issue that they had in that ball game. So that's something else that they're going to have to work on because A&M's not going to be the biggest team out there. They have more size this year than they have, but they're not going to outmuscle you. So they have to be able to outwork you. They have to be able to outthink you. And I think that they had that capability. This team has shown that it does. It has that veteran presence. Henry Coleman III has been playing great of late. He's had back-to-back 18-point performances. Wade Taylor IV been playing very, very well as well, putting up plenty of points. But A&M, like it said, they've got to beat the teams that they need to beat. At this point, I don't think they can deal with any surprise losses. Mm-hmm. And the thing that popped into my mind after they had that big win at Auburn, what's going to happen with Vanderbilt? Because you're coming off a high, you just beat Auburn, knocked off their big-time win streak at home. How are you going to answer back? It was a close ball game, and they did get the win over Vanderbilt, but it was not easy. This might be another kind of situation. Could Georgia somehow come in and play spoiler at Reed? If that was the case, then it's certainly an uphill battle.
Before we get to the little closing segment of this segment, quick thoughts on baseball. I came off a good year last year. Do you think they're able to follow that up?
They did, and I think Schlossnagel's going to have a little bit more talent out on the mound. He's going to have some young guys. Baseball is another one of those sports where you'll see freshmen really coming in and playing a big role, guys you might not have heard of because baseball is not as proficient, or proficient wouldn't be the right word, but it's not as prolific about the talent coming out of the high school ranks as far as scouting. They don't have the rankings on ESPN, whatever. So a lot of fans might not recognize the names that are going to play big roles. You've got a lot of playmakers from last year that are going to be coming back, which I think is important. But the thing that really stood out to me last year, and you had good pitching performances, but you didn't have anybody who was lights out on the mound. Mm. And you look at the teams that Schlossnagel had at TCU, you had some really, really good pitchers. I'm talking about MLB caliber, top 4-round pitchers. Mm-hmm. So can A&M get that talent out on the mound? Can they get the most of it? Offensively, I think they're going to swing the bats just fine. Schlossnagel's MO, right? Take your time, slow the game down. Going to be long and drawn out, but you get productive at bats.
I don't like that.
I know you don't.
I don't enjoy it.
Especially whenever it's opening weekend and it's 32 degrees outside and you're having to watch a 3.5-4 hour game.
Yeah, we're going to get into here in a second your married life, being a married man now, and how a family might affect
it's been that way for a little bit.
Your work-life balance and 4-hour baseball games.
Yes.
Don't really help the work-life balance very much.
No, and the 3:45 a.m. alarm clock doesn't help much either. Ever since I'd been doing morning radio, and I started when I was still single, it really did not allow me to go to those midweek games like I had used to. Because I'd come to all the basketball games, try to make as many baseball games as possible, and that obviously stopped it in the middle of the week, the weekends.
And unlike other people that work at your station, you'd stay past halftime.
Yes, unlike other people. Shout out Chip Howard.
I didn't say it.
You didn't say it. You didn't say it, but I'll go ahead and say it. I don't care. I'm not going to work with him anymore. No, Chip always, and he'll go home and watch the rest of the game, and he has plenty of thoughts on it. He's old school that way, but for me, obviously in the middle of the week, the midweek games, that pretty much became a thing I could not do anymore. And then once I got married, that certainly took some time. We've been married 2.5 years now. And then the kid comes along and just completely ruins everything.
But also literally came out of the womb with the exact same hairstyle that you have.
Yes, He's got great hair. Mm-hmm. He has since he was born, since he was a babe. Mm-hmm. Now he's 18 months old and looking like a grown man. But he's got a beard.
How soon
he's got a 5 o'clock shadow. It's amazing. Yeah, no, he's a great kid, and I want to spend as much time with him as possible. And it certainly makes things difficult, being able to make as many games as I can, and being able to cover A&M while also doing a morning show at 3:45, taking care of the afternoon sports, which plays at 5 o'clock.
For a while, they were having to deal with me once a week.
And having to deal with you, which was really adding years to my life. And so, it's one of those deals. I want to be able to just kind of enjoy this time, this moment, spend as much time as I can with him while also staying in a place that I love, which is Bryan College Station. So, but I'm excited. I'm excited for the next chapter. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm not going anywhere as far as town and things. I can actually enjoy being a fan for the first time in a long time. So
okay, good. So let's look back at a decade-long career here in Bryan College Station.
It sounds like it's a retirement thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you are.
Yeah.
You're retiring at a ripe age of 32.
32.
Yeah.
32.
Yeah. So some of the highlights of A&M athletics going back in this time in broadcasting.
I mean, besides getting to meet you.
I mean, we were going to get to that.
We were going to get to that. That was going to be the number one on my list. Oh gosh, hard to beat. But the first year out of college, covering the team, is when Johnny Manziel won the Heisman Trophy. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know any better. I was just like, oh, this is how football is all the time here. Of course, I knew better because I had gone to school here and I'd seen how bad it could be. Mm-hmm. But I was thinking, oh wow, that things are different now. We've turned over a new leaf. A&M is going to be New Year's Six bowl bound every year. They've got a Heisman Trophy winner. Sky's the limit. And then it kind of went downhill. Then it came back up again. Then it went back downhill again. So we'll see if Jimbo Fisher and company can right the ship eventually on that. But that was pretty cool, getting to cover the second Heisman Trophy winner ever in A&M history. I mean, I obviously wasn't around for John David Crow. I think Cease was, 50 when that happened?
Yeah,
something
55.
like that. Yeah, Robert Cessna had only been on the beat for the last 25 years when John David Crow won it. Getting to cover the Heisman Trophy, getting to cover a regular season championship that A&M had in men's basketball. And that was, of course, the Alex Caruso days of Billy Kennedy. That was pretty neat, getting to see them cut down the nets. That was a highlight. Because you're talking about 10 years, man. There's a lot that goes into that. Certainly the relationships, the different places that I've gotten to go because of it. Mm-hmm. I didn't get to travel as much as I would have liked to, but, getting to go to Atlanta, the Chick-fil-A Bowl, getting to...
crash in our hotel room for the Texas Bowl.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, for the Texas Bowl. Yeah. That was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a blast.
Yeah, that couch was awfully comfy in the Home 2 suites or whatever we were hanging out in. But... making the relationships with the media, making relationships with players, getting to do interviews with players and kind of seeing them progress. It's hard to believe, though, because sometimes people will throw out a name, and I'm like, oh, yeah, they graduated like last year, right? No, it was 3 or 4 years ago is when they played. And there's some folks that they know exactly when that person played, what kind of plays they made and stuff like that. For me, for some reason, it's starting to run together. And it's only been 10 years. I get in the grand scheme of things when you compare yourself like someone, Robert Cessna, who is just a...
Or One Chip Howard.
Who has been doing this for quite some time. They still remember a lot of those things, and they're able to kind of separate it. With me, some of it's just kind of started to run together. And then you start talking about a guy like Mike Evans, who I covered at A&M. Mm-hmm. And now people are saying, oh, yeah, he's a Hall of Famer in the NFL. And you're thinking, well, I just remember talking to him, and he was playing wide receiver for A&M, and nobody had heard of him. And suddenly now he's a Hall of Famer. People are talking about how he's a shoe-in. So hard to believe that time passes like it does. But no, it's been great. It's been a fun experience.
So in 2016, I get here, and we decide that because the My Aggie Nation radio show was going off the air at Bryan Broadcasting, it
was kaput.
We needed to start a podcast, so we did that. And I preface all this by saying the podcast will still go on, and you will still have an open invitation to be on podcast.
Wow, that's
at any time.
That's high praise, or high invite, I guess.
But it was a little wheels off early. We didn't quite know what we wanted, who we were, what we wanted to be, or what we wanted to do. We were hitting the hard hitting news. Like I think our first guest was Maggie Malone coming right off of
one of them, yes.
The Olympics. I think Shireen Williams might have been our first actual guest, if I remember right.
Gosh, it's hard to believe it. Because when you think 2016, that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Or no, 7.
7, yeah.
I went to A&M. That's why my math is
There
bad.
you go.
Yeah, no, hard to believe. Yeah, I remember Maggie coming in, javelin thrower for Texas A&M, competed at Rio.
We also decided we wanted to do bits. We had, and I still get this brought up to me by one Brent Zorneman when it was back in the day, when this talk about a long time ago, back in the day when we got to talk to coordinators every week.
Oh, that's right.
And Noel Mazzoni
That's right.
came in, and he seemed like he had a goal to get us to giggle a little bit. And we decided we needed to put a laugh track to Noel Mazzoni's press conference.
Yeah.
A little less hard-hitting news back then.
Yeah, a little less. It was certainly light-hearted. No, I appreciated that though, because I mean, Noel Mazzoni, you can say what you want to about him as far as an offensive coordinator, but at least he came in, he spoke with us, and it was fun getting to talk with him. And he kept it light. He didn't give a lot of coach speech. He was pretty much out there, and it was pretty fun to get to listen to him. So we put a laugh track behind him, and like he was a comedian that was hanging out doing the Jerry Seinfeld bits. But yeah, no, that was like one of our first bits or whatever.
Yeah.
And then of course one of our recurring, at one time I guess, was a co-host. Now I know he comes on with you quite a bit. One Jay Arnold.
Yes.
Getting to really meet Jay and become friends with Jay, that was a lot of fun. Still friends with Jay, see him around. He was
Played softball with him.
Yeah, played softball with Jay after he ate the chorizo burger from Whataburger. We were wondering how that was going to work out, running around the bases.
I think we also we used to pick all the college football games for the week, and we had Reveille pick the games by just doing a woofing dog bit drop.
Vaguely remember that?
Yeah. My buddy, who was actually Max Crawford, meteorologist here at KBTX, brother-in-law, picked the games for us, and then we had, quote unquote, had Reveille. It was pretty wheels off. It was pretty wheels off. We interviewed a horse.
That's right.
Because
we were doing the equestrian stuff.
Yeah. We did interview a horse.
Man, that's hard to believe. You know?
I know.
I mean, we were just young, spry.
That was like when I was fat before I got skinny before I got fat again. So it's a long
riding the
time
waves
ago.
of emotion.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like Matthew Perry on Friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, well, Zach,
I forgot about the horse.
Yeah, that was a good one.
As opposed to the utmost professionals that we are. At this
we're just seasoned. Look at all this gray in our beards. Like that's how you know it's real.
That's and you got that now. Wait till you get kids.
Yeah.
It's going to get so much worse.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, well, Zach, thanks for coming back on one more time. Again,
Thanks,
you will be back on again for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm around.
Me and Alex for the second segment, we already recorded this before, talked a little Anais Smith. You want to pitch it to the second segment?
Folks, want y'all to hang out. The My Aggie Nation podcast going to take a quick break. When we come back, going to talk some Anais Smith returning to Texas A&M. You're listening to the My Aggie Nation podcast.